So, welcome back to 3rd Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and possibly the last battle replay for about a week or so, as I consider doing something a little bit different within the 3rd Age space. Again, I've been talking about this basically in the last 3 replays, but do keep an eye out for that, because I don't think it's something people dislike me doing, but I think I've pretty much made up my mind to go ahead and do it, especially after the Helm's Deep replay. I think that was what really got me onto the path of actually deciding to drift into doing something that I've been meaning to do for a while, to be fair, but I've never really gotten around to. But I feel as though now the time is right. But don't worry, the battle replays will be returning after a week excursion, alongside hopefully something else as well. And today we have a bit of a grudge match, because I don't know however many of you remember the Gondor versus Harad river crossing that we saw that Harad were victorious in. Today we have both of the same players once again. The good faction is going to be played by Bilbo T. Baggins, who I think through no fault of his own was actually the one who sent me the Helm's Deep replay that has sort of solidified in my mind that I'm going to be doing things slightly differently from here on out. But we shall see. Again, these are two slightly newer end players, and the Helm's Deep one sadly wasn't his fault, because he was on the side that didn't really do an awful lot wrong. But yes, he's going to be playing as Dol Amroth. I would imagine as well that it's not going to be sort of like the cutting edge, like the very best of the best playing the game. But hopefully we're going to be starting to see some improvement from him, because he has sent me a few replays at this stage, and by now he should be sort of getting to grips with the game, to be honest with you. Like, Total War has got a lot of intricacies, but you shouldn't be doing large sweeping things wrong after the first 2 or 3 battles, to be honest with you. So we'll see if he can do a little bit better than he did last time, where he allowed his archer line really to get swamped by Harad, and he could be in a similar situation here as well, because certainly in terms of brute force, Angmar are going to have the better of Dol Amroth, but they are fighting in this section of the map here, which this is an interesting map. That's one thing I will say. His 1v1s that he sent me have definitely been on maps that are not boring. So I've got to give him big kudos to that, because a lot of players just cannot separate themselves from Moria, Buur-Sagath and others of its ilk. But here we go. He's going to be playing as Dol Amroth, so we shall have a look at what he has brought today. Dol Amroth, certainly in terms of their infantry fighting power, are going to come off second best for the most part against Angmar, but he has also invested almost entirely into his infantry, so he is going to have pretty much all, I think, of the higher tier options. Once again, he's gone for a very substantial firing line as well. Hopefully he does a better job of protecting it this time, because he needs to. If he's gone fully into his foot-based units and has not brought any of Dol Amroth's cavalry, he's opening himself up to play the game that Angmar want to play, and Dol Amroth don't win that battle a lot of the time unless they position their stuff well. It's going to come down to ranged units as well for Dol Amroth, I think, based on a cursory glance at what they've brought. They've got a couple of units of Belfalas Marines. These javelins will be very, very useful, because they're going to need the armour-piercing punch of these to really start dealing some damage to some of Angmar's stronger infantry units, sort of the upper mid-tier units that they have. Stuff like the Guardians of Khan Doom, potentially Gundabad Guard, and that sort of thing. Because while Dol Amroth do have some decent infantry that can beat them 1-to-1, they can't bring them in anywhere near the numbers that Angmar can, so they're going to need to do some damage in other ways. Their infantry line can hold out for a decent amount of time, but they're not going to be able to win without some significant support, and the Belfalas Marines can provide that, even if I'm not the biggest fan of this type of javelin. Then we have a couple of units of dismounted knights, the Silver Swan. They flatter to deceive a little bit, to be honest with you. Yes, they're multiple HP, so it means they can survive a decent amount of punishment. But their stats are more akin to something like an upper mid-tier unit of regular human infantry, something along the lines of like Alcarondas Legion, maybe even slightly lower than that, like maybe even something like the Dismounted Serpent Guard. However, having said that, because they are much tougher, it means that they make an excellent supporting unit. They also buff the morale, which I think is going to be very necessary for Dol Amroth here. Their morale is not bad by any means, but when Angmar come crashing down on you and your lines start to fail in places, having a morale buffing unit around can sort of save you from it sort of spiralling and circling the drain for your hopes at winning the battle overall. 2 units of them as well means that they should be able to spread them out across their line relatively well. Some upgraded pikes. Once again, this is not something that Dol Amroth will necessarily win. A phalanx battle against Angmar, it's going to be quite difficult for them to do that if Witch Realm pikemen are included in the Angmar army today. But you definitely need to bring pikes like this if you're going to go for an infantry build, because they will just give you that little bit more solidity. The main source of AP damage, I think, today is going to be coming from the Athalont Halberdiers. However, he has got the Black Swans as well, but for reasons we'll go into, I think the Halberdiers are going to be more important, because the Phalanx is there. there's no way that Angmar are going to be able to blanket their lines with pikes so completely that they can stop 2 units of Dol Amroth pikes and 3 halberdiers. So the phalanx here could be very useful, and unlike the pikes, the Athelond halberdiers are substantially better than the Angmar halberds. So they do certainly have that going for them, and the AP is going to be incredibly necessary to try and blunt some of that Angmar momentum, and they will certainly try and seize as they are closer to the settlement as well, so they can dig in. Black Swan Renegades will also be useful in that regard. Having said that, they don't have the phalanx, so they are going to get up close and personal. They're going to be more likely to take damage more quickly. They can look after themselves well enough. My main worry with them would be if they get caught in melee with some of Angmar's really nasty stuff. If they find themselves in and around, if they find themselves getting sort of put at arm's length by pikes, for example, and then Hammer Guard or Black Guard come near them, they could find themselves in real trouble. But the AP is a bit of a no-brainer against Angmar, to be honest with you, because Dol Amroth don't have many other ways of doing it other than the halberds, and you do need an up-close and personal version of that as well. We've got a couple of Perithal champions. The Fear, to be fair, could be quite useful against some of the lower-tier Angmar units, and obviously the high base damage and high melee defense is also very useful. It's definitely the area of Dol Amroth's infantry that is generally the most impressive aspect of it when you compare them to their close allies and neighbours in Gondor. Really the one area of infantry Dol Amroth have a genuine edge over their allies on is the heavy swordsman. In all other aspects, really, Gondor have got either a slight advantage or a very significant one. 2 units of upgraded Doranonal archers. I don't know if the armour upgrade is terribly worth it, to be honest with you. I guess they couldn't really upgrade anything else. So I guess considering that, it's not such a big deal. But the one thing that you can count on is that Angmar are not really going to be able to skirmish with you. Like, even a basic unit of human archers is going to be enough to give you the advantage at range. I'm not sure. I think he's brought too many archers, to be honest with you. I think if Angmar have got the kind of army that I would imagine them to have against Dol Amroth, I would suggest that 5 archers and 2 javelins is too much to be looking after. You can't afford to babysit this amount of stuff because they're going to find gaps, and the Doranonal archers with the armour upgrade, if it's any sort of decent Angmar unit that catches them in melee, the armour upgrade isn't going to be enough to save them. But we'll see. Positioning of the archers, if it's better than last time, could be what wins Dol Amroth the game. 2 units of Tirithea marksmen, obviously better all round. There's slightly fewer of them, but the armour is better. They've also got better stats, so they're not exactly up to the same level as the Caer Andros marksmen in melee, but they will hold on for a little bit longer, and against basic Angmar stuff, they'll easily be able to hold the line and send them back from whence they came. And this could be a very significant unit as well. Wanderers of Nimrodel, especially in... Looks like we're going to be seeing the fight within the little Elden village itself. So if they can get some good sight lines down the streets and start firing their body-piercing projectiles through large portions of the Angmar army, they could be onto a winner there. But Angmar have got a lot of big shields, they've got a lot of heavy armour, so positioning is really everything for these archers. And of course Imrahil is going to be on foot today, which is unusual for him in a field battle, with the Haven Guard, of course, by far the most impressive unit of Dol Amroth infantry. Something that Angmar will definitely need to take into account. Then, Rusty Shackleford. He's gone for some halberds and some pikes over here, so some AP phalanx, also the standard version. Although they don't have the armour upgrade, they should still... I mean, it won't be... Pike to pike, like you rarely see those battles reach their conclusion because they take so long. It's more sort of other things will decide that fight beforehand, but they bear quite a lot in common with the Uruk-hai pikes from Isengard, only you can't bring quite as many as Angmar. Definitely a decent unit. He has got the armour upgrade on the Guardians of Kharn, which I actually prefer, to be honest with you, because it'll make them just a little bit tougher in melee, which is what their whole purpose is, and because Dol Amroth can only do AP damage in certain ways, it's not as if they're going up against a faction with tons of AP blanketed across their line, where the Guardians of Kharn can find themselves that are being exposed a little bit, to be honest with you. But yeah, they're here. He's also got some Witchhound Scourge Raiders with the armour upgrade. Again, throwing projectiles could be really, really good as long as they use them against the right targets. I'll be looking for Rusty Shackleford to use them, especially on the pikes and the halberds that Dol Amroth have brought, because if they can start doing damage to Dol Amroth's infantry line, then they'll be able to start exposing the fact that they've brought so many ranged units. Blackwatch Legion as well. If there's any section of the Dol Amroth line which is too thin, the Blackwatch Legion will be able to bulldoze right on through it, which is something to watch out for, as of course can the Trolls, although the Trolls do it more naturally and in a more uncontrollable fashion. But again, I'll be looking for them to try and isolate themselves against pikes if possible, because they can do really, really well against low damage, low stat units of pikemen. They need to be a little bit careful about doing that to something like the Athelond Halberdiers though, because the AP damage can do the business. Hammer Guard and Black Guard together. Again, interesting deployments for both of them. You can see Angmar are actually going to be approaching the settlement from 2 sides. But yeah, both units of elite infantry here. Definitely a bit of a problem for Dol Amroth. They're going to need to try and sort of isolate them and separate them if they can to defeat them. Some Goblin Band in a very densely packed shield wall for some reason. We also have some Trolls of Good and Bad once again, so both units of Trolls, so yeah, he's gone for a lot of the better units, to be honest with you. Angmar Halberds pretty much the lowest tier of unit he has, but they still have that AP Phalanx, which is still useful. I mean, they're not as good as any of the other Phalanx units on display today, but if they do isolate themselves against a unit which can't really answer that, they should do just fine, especially if they're supported. Another unit of Witchbound Pikes, and then several units of Guardians of Kharn Dûm back here, and more Scourge Raiders, so Dol Amroth, we'll see. They could be fine. Without further ado, let's begin. I don't think Dol Amroth will be punished quite so much for bringing so many units of archers and javelins as they could have been if Angmar went more numbers focused. But for me, the problem still remains. Like, Angmar in melee have got a lot of their really nasty stuff on display. I'd be surprised if there weren't some Snaga skulking around hidden as well, because that didn't seem like all of the Angmar army, to be honest with you, even with all those elites. And I would most certainly imagine here that is going to be the case. I think it'd be interesting to see what Angmar is actually doing here. I mean, I would certainly be stopping Dol Amroth from claiming this this little township, to be honest with you. Blackwatch Legion, Goblin Band, just edging forwards just ever so slightly. Unless the idea was always to let Dol Amroth go into the settlement, but to me, that's a little bit suspect, to be honest with you. It gives Dol Amroth the opportunity to not allow Angmar to do what they do best, and I feel as though honestly that's a bit of an unfair advantage if the Dol Amroth player stipulated that that was a condition of the battle. I don't like that, to be honest with you. I think that's rather poor form if that's what Bilbo insisted upon for this battle. Orc fellas revealing themselves. Yep, another unit which can hide for Angmar, of course, hide anywhere. And that's good because they're cheap, they're AP, going to be able to do a decent amount of work on them. On the right kinds of units anyway. Obviously, if they go up against something like the Untitled Champions or, God forbid, the Haven Guard, the massive amount of melee defense and base damage is going to rip through the Orc fellas, even with the AP damage they can try and give in return. They're not going to be living long enough to really pin that down. Yeah, and yeah, this for me is highly suspect that one player would be allowed to do this. Although, to be fair, you can go around here. It's not as if he can just wall himself up on the other side of this. At least I can assume he can go over these little humps. But yeah, we'll see. I have to say, I'm kind of rooting for Angmar on this one, if this was always the plan. If Dol Amroth was given the luxury of digging themselves into some choke points, I would still worry for Dol Amroth in terms of like the brute force that Angmar can bring to bear, but this gives them all of the opportunity they need to use their skirmishers to good effect, which, under normal circumstances, I really can't help but feel as though Dol Amroth bringing 5 units of archers and 2 units of javelins would be exposed by a lot of players. It's going to be more difficult for Angmar to do that now, and I feel as though it's because of certain conditions that were put on this battle beforehand. We shall see if that's if that has any impact on the battle as a whole. Nice locale, though, at least. Dornonal archers moving forward. Don't think Angmar brought anything in terms of range units, at least not that we can see. There might be some Snaga archers skulking around somewhere, and indeed, well, there are some Snaga stalkers. A unit of basically trash infantry that cost around 50 florins. 250 of them. Obviously, you can imagine the level of quality that we're talking about here when you're talking about 250 men for only 50 florins. Quite literally a fifth of a florin each. Absolutely madness. Barrow Wights, another unit which I can't believe I forgot about, to be honest with you, that can hide for Angmar. Going to be a real pain for Dol Amroth to try and get rid of, but I think, you know, they don't do a ton of damage if we're being honest. But it is going to mean that Angmar are going to be able to hold the line for an extended period of time. And you can see some Tirithir marks and Wanderers of Nimrodol. I do hope that Angmar exploits this this little pathway over here. I feel as though that is only fair, considering the fact that Dol Amroth have been allowed to recline, essentially, into a position which is quite fraudulent when you think about it. I think there's fraudulence happening on the screen in front of us right now. It's a real shame that Angmar didn't bring artillery, because then egg on face for the Dol Amroth player, most certainly, wouldn't it? With how congested things are at this crossroads in the middle of this little elven village. And still, we await. We await the beginning of the fight. Here we go, Barrow White's moving backwards. I'm going to make a cut. And here we go, Dol Amroth opening up with their archers, shooting into the pikes, who are again in front of the line infantry, which is the wrong way around really. If you mix in your line, especially with upgraded Guardians of Kharndoom, basic Dorananal archers are going to have relatively little impact. But to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't be going after the pikes, I would probably be going after the Scourge Raiders, which is exactly what Dol Amroth seem to be doing, and a little bit concerned because immediately we could be seeing some of the same problems that plagued the Helm's Deep replay that was very recent, purely because we can see that Angmar are sort of moving in with smaller amounts of units. Now these are axe throwers, I believe, which are Scourge Raiders, so attacking from the front against more heavily armoured and shielded infantry like Black Swan Renegades, not going to, well, I mean, they turn their back at exactly the wrong time there, and you can see the difference from the front with the shields. Only 2 or 3 of them fell. Now they've turned their back, they're falling in droves, really. And they will do damage much more quickly than archers can. And to be honest with you, the archers is kind of shooting over buildings, so actually things are not quite so dire for the Black Swans. I do hope that Angmar is proactive when the time comes, because that's where Angmar's biggest strength is. The fact that you can throw everything forward, and if your opponent is not fully prepared for it, they will start to bend and break. Dol Amroth especially, I think, I mean, they have been allowed to sort of get themselves into a very nice defensive position with their phalanx units, which is all well and good. But you have to question whether or not they have the punch to be dealing with things here. I mean, Barrow Whites in particular, like, over a long period of time, with some Orc fellas moving in as well to give a little bit more of an edge to this assault. 1 unit of Black Swans. Is it going to be sufficient? I'm not sure. He is moving forward with numbers here, to be fair. Moving in with his Witcher-armed pikemen, they're still going after the Scourge Raiders, but to be honest with you, it's not a huge amount of damage. I mean, the armour upgrade on the Scourge Raiders does seem to have made a bit of a difference. It's still not great for them, obviously, again, based on the nature of the battle, they are being funneled into these streets. And you can see now Dol Amroth seeing that this avenue of attack over here is a little bit more substantial. Athelond Halberdiers are moving in, and that phalanx will be enough to sort of calm things down. But if the pikes make it to the front line, I mean, it doesn't really do them a great deal of doesn't really give them a great deal of support. There's Snaga Stalkers and Barrow Whites heading over here as well. I have to say, I'm a little bit surprised that it's the Black Swans that are sort of picking up the slack on the front line over here. I suppose because they've invested fully into their infantry here and they want to be more defensive, they haven't needed to bring something like the men-at-arms, which can be used as a first line. But also, Angmar are not coming forward with like masses of units, so you could say that you could put like the Halberdiers on the front line perhaps. Maybe even the Perithal Champions, because I think they would do slightly better against something like the Barrow Whites. I think that base damage would make a difference. Dol Amroth are trying to push forwards here. They're using their phalanx to drive into the Angmar lines. I don't think it's going to work too well for them though. I mean, Barrow Whites have got very light mass, which is why you see them go flying. But the real problem here is as they push forward, their formation's going to be a little bit out of whack. And the Orc fellas, I mean, they're taking a lot of damage here, but the Orc fellas will be able to get a few kills at the very least. The real problem, however, is going to be the pikes, the Scourge Raiders. As they taunt, you're unlikely to do any significant damage to Dol Amroth's line at this stage. Which round Scourge Raiders, what are they going after? Are they going after the Halberds? They should be. Definitely prime real estate there. They're not actually, they're going after the Dorananal archers. That's... I mean, it's fair enough, like, they're the ones doing damage to you at the moment, but like I said, in the Moria replay that wasn't too far back, when someone tried using axe throws to skirmish with crossbows, it's not really worthwhile. Like, hand-thrown projectiles are at their best when you're doing damage to the enemy infantry, and they would have been really good to thin out the ranks of these Athelond Halberdiers, who over here, there's no pikes to really stop them from using those halberds. The maces are in there as well. The Snaga are not going to last very long. The Barrow Whites will stick around for a while, but ultimately they won't make up much ground. There are quite a lot of elite units over on this side of things, however. A little bit more numbers focused over here. You can see that, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can go that way. I can't imagine why not. But Angmar should definitely be looking at doing that at some stage. But yes, Dol Amroth here, they have pushed a little bit too far forwards, and now the Barrow Wights are sort of crunching in from the sides. There's still a few Orc fellas in here as well, but the real problem is going to be the Witcher Arm Pikemen as they come forward. Obviously not going to do a huge amount of damage to these pretty well armoured, especially the Black Swans, but there's not very many Black Swans left at all. Belfalas Marines throwing their javelins in. Again, this is the issue that Angmar are going to have. They are bottled up into going down these streets. And that is unfortunate for them, but they have ways in which they can adapt. On a map like this, if the stipulation beforehand for the Angmar player was that, hey man, listen, you've got to let me have things my way and let me settle down nice and comfortably into this little village, all of the alarm bells for Angmar should have been ringing at that point, that maybe some artillery would have been the way to go. Because artillery would have changed things dramatically for Dol Amroth here. They would have been in a more sticky situation than they would otherwise have been at this point, where they can be a little bit more relaxed. I mean, these halberdiers can't afford to be relaxed. I mean, as much as these javelins are coming in trying to give them a hand, these Witcher Arm Pikemen are also taking damage incredibly quickly, actually, from those Belfalas Marines. So ultimately, Dol Amroth are probably coming out on top of this engagement, to be honest with you, but I mean, they're not winning it for free. Meanwhile, there you can see the classic Barrow Wights going absolutely crazy. I think this is a result of their low mass, to be honest with you. It kind of makes sense that Wraiths could be able to do this in a real battle situation, I suppose. But it doesn't make it look any less weird. Meanwhile, these axe throwers continuing. Unfortunately though, like the Dorananal archers will maintain the same amount of ammunition. Maybe not the same DPS, so it's not a complete waste, but still. We've got the Angmar halberds over here, which actually have, along with the Barrow Wights and the Snaga, shored things up quite nicely, and once again, the Barrow Wights are crunching in from the sides. And it's a problem for Dol Amroth, this. Because ultimately they do have a limited supply of melee units. Belfalas Marines already out of ammunition, trying to come in to shore things up. Might not be the heroes that Dol Amroth need, however, on the front line, and this is the difference between a unit of good quality infantry and a unit of skirmishers that are out of ammunition. Because I don't think they're going to be doing all that much. I mean, Angmar halberds have moved forward to help shore things up. Barrow Wights are still nice and healthy, as you would expect. Another unit of javelins, so they're dumping all of their javelins in pretty early on here. Are Dol Amroth. And Dol Amroth are interested in holding on to these outer streets. I think that's doing Angmar that courtesy is the least Dol Amroth can do, having posted up in the town. I wouldn't be so against it if Angmar had at least tried to contest getting into the town, but it was very obvious that, well, we'll stop mentioning it at this point. I think the point has been made. But dismounted knights, the Silver Swan, morale boost coming in timely fashion as well, because these units on the front line are still shaken, and you can't really blame them. The Barrow Wights are here causing fear. There's a lot of numbers heading forwards too. And of course, Dol Amroth's ace in the hole is the fact that they have a bridge which they can use rangers on, which that's going to be the issue here for Angmar. I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to leave at least one of their units of trolls alive so they can try and rush down the rangers to prevent them from firing, and then try and use their Blackwatch Legion to cross that bridge, because I can already see kind of what way this battle is going. I think Angmar will probably have the better end of this engagement out here, but if they cannot diffuse the massive defensive advantage that that bridge offers those rangers, it's going to be real tough for them, to be honest with you. There go the Guardians of Khandu over to the other side. Pretty comfortable for Angmar over here, to be honest with you. Those Dorananal archers don't have the best of shots. We shall see. Still shaken on the front line. The dismounted knights, the Silver Swan. As I said, I wouldn't really classify them as a bodyguard tier unit, to be honest with you. They're just a high tier unit of infantry. Multiple HP is all well and good, but they are more of a supporting unit. They're not going to be able to hold back an entire army all on their lonesome for any length of time, really. What have we got here? Yeah, these trolls doing a lot of damage, and again, another out of ammunition skirmisher unit is not going to be the answer, unfortunately. These Belfalas Marines, they do wield axes. They've got a slightly higher attack than the average Joe. But yeah, it's not going to go very well for them against trolls and Barrow Wights. And I do think Dol Amroth have probably misjudged the situation a little bit here. Like they've had every advantage as well. That's the situation. Angmar are a tough faction to face when they get rolling, but I mean, they really don't have much of an excuse here, Dol Amroth. And again, 41 dismounted knights to Silver Swan. It's unfortunate, I would say. Trolls of Gundabad. Really just spud punching these Belfalas Marines into the ground. Pikes are over here, and we can see already what Dol Amroth want to do. They've had their nose bloodied in the town centre, and now, what was always the plan, I imagine, was to use this choke point. Use the Rangers, 2 higher tier units of archers with slightly more base damage than the regular ones. Put yourself at a disadvantage, so that it doesn't seem like fraudulence of the highest level when you fall back over here. But we shall see. We shall see how Angmar deal with this. They still have enough disposable units, to be honest with you, but I don't know, it's a massive dent that Rangers can put in your army. Like in a choke point like this, they're very capable of getting over 500 kills. And getting 500 kills would give Dol Amroth the leg up they need, because they've still got their heavy swordsmen, all 3 units, including the Haven Guard. They've still got another unit for Silver Swan Knights. They've got Phalanx units all over the place. Yeah. It is going to be interesting, though. It is going to be interesting. Let's see here. Well, actually, I think based on the rapid retreat, and I think Rusty Shackleford is probably thinking he knows what's coming. He just needs to find a way to circumvent the problem. I mean, to be honest with you, I would go around. I'd go around. Doesn't matter how much my opponent would protest in this situation. Like you have put yourself in this situation. I would attack from 3 directions and crush them underfoot unceremoniously. We shall see. I doubt that's what's going to happen, to be honest with you. I think that probably the rule will be... This is probably what's happening in the in-game chat at the moment, if I had to hazard a guess. It's Dol Amroth insisting that they can only use the bridge. We shall see, though. I'll make a cut, and we'll rejoin when Angmar is laying siege to this little island that Dol Amroth occupy. So here we go. The shambling masses slowly plod their way across the bridge into the welcoming arms of this unit of Doran Ernil pikemen. It should be fine. I mean, to be fair, like if the Barrow-Wights glitch happens where they sort of start moving through the line, it could be a bit of a problem for Dol Amroth. But I mean, in theory, this is fine. Like these pikes are going to be able to hold the line. It's going to be a substantial amount of trouble that follows them, however. 2 units of Barrow-Wights. We could be here for quite some time, to be honest with you, to the point where I'm actually going to turn it up to ×2 speed, because I'm sure that high-octane action is not what's going to be gracing our screen as these Barrow-Wights slowly but surely get poked to death by a unit of regular pikes. I think that's what's going to be happening here, which is not really what Rusty Shackleford should be doing, to be honest with you, but I mean, if he is bowing to the wishes of the Dol Amroth player and can only use this bridge, then I can see what the issues may be, because he's going to have to deal with the Wanderers of Nimrodel at some stage. But yeah, you can see there, the Wanderers of Nimrodel. Here we go. This is where the stacked deck starts to come into effect. Massive amounts of crossfire coming in now onto these Phalanx units, including Rangers themselves, of course, who are going to be able to rip their way through. I mean, even the Barrow-Wights might take a decent amount of damage here because they're going after the halberds and the pikemen. But yeah, you can see, just look at the pikes in particular evaporate there. Like that was a half decent sized unit there, and now they're getting ripped up. The Barrow-Wights will be able to withstand it a little bit better just because of how tanky they are. Here we go. This is what every player wants to set up for themselves in campaign, and somehow Mr. Bilbo T. Baggins has managed to bamboozle Rusty Shackleford into allowing him to do it in multiplayer. Incredible scenes. Defeat seems certain. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, they probably will run out of ammunition before Angmar are completely dead, but at the end of the day, if Angmar need to continue to go across this bridge choke point, I do think, in spite of the losses they took earlier on, Dol Amroth will go on to win this fight. I don't really see any other way in which it can work out, because Angmar... Yeah. Witch Realm Scourge Raiders getting ripped up by the Dol Amrothian archers. And here we go. Ranger fire coming in once again. Witch Realm Scourge Raiders routing and broken. As soon as they arrived, well, no sooner had they arrived than they start fleeing for their lives because they see the situation. They see what has happened in this battle and they are like, no, we refuse to be used as pawns any longer. And they will go down the road to the other settlement over here, where there is no such skullduggery happening. What's going on back here? Ooh, hello. That's, I think they went for the wrong unit of archers there. Well, they went for Perithal Champions, interestingly enough. I think that was a little bit of an incorrect move, I must say. I feel as though that if they had gone and hit centre mass with the Wanderers of Nimrodel, that would have removed a massive thorn in their side. Even though they would have still had the ammunition, the DPS wouldn't quite have been there, and then they could push forward in slightly more impressive fashion, perhaps. But here are the Perithal Champions now joining the front line. You can see how little damage the pikes have taken. The Barrow Wights are still alive, which is a testament to how sort of tough they can be, but they're not really damage dealers. They're just there to sort of occupy enemy units. Here come Trolls. Witch Realm Hammerguard are coming forward, which, I mean, again, that's another good target for Rangers, if we're being honest. In come the Trolls. But while they are good against pikes, very good against pikes, and in fact, sustained melee might be where it's at for the Trolls here. I'm going to go back down to 1 speed for a second. I mean, Halberds will do better against Trolls, but they were actually able to do more damage there than Angmar have done so far, across this bridge anyway. That hit from the Witchers was very nice, and never has there been a battle more where I think the Witchers have been justified in grilling an entire unit in one shot. If they have more ammunition, then let there be fire, I say. Tirithea Marksman firing in. The shields and armour of the Guardians of Khan Doom will do quite a lot of work here to help keep them alive, but it is still ultimately damage that they are going to be taking. The Hammerguard are in there as well, which is a sign that Dol Amroth can't afford to take this too lightly, but once again the Wanderers of Nimrodel are going to be shooting in, which will still do a lot of damage, less than it did before, but still very substantial, I would say. The Trolls are in there against AP units now as well, which is going to be significant. There's still units of infantry in reserve. The depleted unit of Perithal Champions are in there as well. There's still a lot of Angmar troops left, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you, with what they have been subjected to, Angmar are the faction that everybody loves to hate, but on this occasion, I would like to see them victorious. Witch King himself, not here because the Witch Realm Inquisitors are not with us at the moment. Look at that guy there. Look at him. Orc officer for Angmar. Got like a fairly nice little longsword there. Walking along with the Scourge Raiders. Again, these little models that you don't really recognise when you're looking at battles as a whole. I know that the Tharbad Riders have got a sort of sword and shield version of themselves as a sort of officer in their unit as well, which is pretty cool. Perithal Champions. Thinking of committing themselves in. Here are the Trolls of Gundabad. Following in where the Trolls of Angmar have fallen. Which is a sign, to be honest with you, that Dol Amroth probably needs some more units on the front line. They're continuing to just pour those Ranger shots in there. One of the Trolls has broken through, but I don't know, it's still going to be punishing for them. Scourge Raiders, a pretty soft target too. Perithal Champions moving in. A good unit to use against the Trolls, as most shock infantry units will be. Doing the business. Haven Guard's still alive as well. The Hammer Guard are in there as well. I don't know, 32. Taking a bit of damage, I suppose. I mean, they have been up against a phalanx, and some of those arrows will be hitting them as well. You can see the Trolls sneaking their way through, getting in and amongst the Tirithea Marksmen. You love to see it. There's a lot of damage those Witchers did, and I imagine they still have probably about one more volley left, because that was the full unit. the full Monty of a Witcher strike. Goblin band. And the wonder is they have been engaged, and that 4 of the trolls made it through that line, and again, nothing was there to stop them in behind. All of the reserves were over here, effectively. Dol Amroth may have given themselves too much to do with the poor manner of the outer defence. They always had one eye on making it all about this bridge, I think, and in the end, that may very well end up costing them, especially with the Blackwatch Legion on the way forwards. I mean, there's enough Dol Amroth troops there now, I think, that they should be able to hold off against a push, but if they save the Blackwatch Legion a little bit longer, that may cease to be the case. Wanderers of Nimrodel victory. One of the trolls has fallen, but they are taking their fair share here, and another one actually does engage. 5 of them are still alive, actually, so 6 trolls in total made it back here, which could very well be enough to cause enough damage to these archers to win the battle for Angmar. One of those is actually a troll of Angmar who's still alive, which is impressive. All they need to do is keep those units occupied for the time being. Try and break this Dol Amroth's front line. Or Dol Amroth front line. There's not multiple Dol Amroths on the field. Not this day, anyway. But yes, moving across, the Scourge Raiders still chanting. Here come the Blackwatch Legion with Goblin Band to offer some more numbers. The Witchers are on their way forward as well. I've got to keep an eye on them, because if I'm zoomed in and they hit, that's where some of Reforged's technical fragilities become quite apparent. As they try and bulldoze their way through. This is going to cost them very dearly, because they're a Haven Guard on the front line now, as well as dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan. They need to follow up with pretty much everything they have at this point, I think, Angmar. That could be the way in which they win this battle. Another nice hit there from the Witchers. And I've no sympathy for Dol Amroth when it comes to facing the Witchers here, because this is the situation they always wanted for themselves, Dol Amroth. Arguably better than artillery in this situation, the Witchers, because they're almost certain to get at least some sort of decent hit. I mean, that wasn't particularly good, but if they do hit into even a glancing blow, can be utterly devastating, as that one there was. And there they go, the Witchers still reloading. 7 of them remaining. I mean, it's very clear to see the fragility of the Witchers when they're parked in front of archers like this. Only a few volleys, and a unit that has quite a few hit points to its name is getting absolutely ripped apart, but ultimately they have managed to dump, I think, all of their ammunition. I think that would be all their ammunition anyway. They definitely don't have much of it, but Dol Amroth's front line compromised. Blackwatch Legion will fall, and Goblin Band will not be far behind them, and it's quite key at this point for Angmar that they commit anything that they have left. 16 pikes. Where did the Blackguard go, I wonder? Did they get committed at some stage and I was just blind to it? Another shot coming in from the Witchers, but it goes up against a unit that's... Well, the Blackguard are in there, I think, now. Yes, they are. They were committed relatively recently, though. 64 of them. And this could be a problem for Dol Amroth, to be honest with you, because I think now, with the Blackguard on the front line, with the fact that the Haven Guard have already taken damage from being in melee combat, it could be a real problem, to be honest, because Blackguard are extremely tough. The problem the Blackguard may have is a lot of the units that are around them are stuff like Goblin Band, which are going to be easy pickings for anything Dol Amroth have in melee. So it is a close battle, ultimately. 16 pikes on the way back, everything. All hands to the pump it needs to be now for both sides. Fighting for the bridge. I think the Witchers are dead to the last man, are they? There's a Scourge Raider here just enjoying himself down by the lake. Well, well, well. What have we got going on over here? Still some Scourge Raiders in melee as well. 60... Well, they're falling pretty quickly, but they're better than the Goblin Band at the very least. In go the Blackwatch Legion, making sure that these Tirathea marksmen cannot continue to fire, which is important because they've got a really nice shot into the side, to be honest with you, of the Angmar units. And actually, considering the fact that the Blackguard are really the only impressive unit Angmar have left, I think perhaps maybe Dol Amroth will have enough, have what it takes to get things over the line here. pure martial might. Doranel and Pikemen are broken, however, which is a bit of a problem because that phalanx is kind of important to keeping the rigidity of that section of their line. Bit of a shame that they bottled it. Scourge Raiders, they do have ammunition left. They're shaken though, so they are on the verge of routing. The nearby Parathil Champions, who are here, I believe still here. There's got to be some of them, right? Yes, there are. Not very many, but the fear effect still real. But being out of melee stabilises the Scourge Raiders. They will now throw some volleys, which is going to be... like, they need to use up all their ammunition here and then get into melee. That is definitely how Angmar can make something happen here in the closing stages. The Blackwatch Legion. Only 15 of them left, retreating back to the safety, question mark, of the Goblin Band. Don't know where they're going, to be honest with you. Like, well, I mean, trying to open up a better shot for the Scourge Raiders. Two of their marksmen are unshielded, so not the worst target in the world, and it does allow them to get more kills. Over on this side of things as well, where Dol Amroth are easily going to win, because Goblin Band are just slowly getting eaten alive by Haven Guard. Some of the Haven Guard are up against the Black Guard as well, which is why you are seeing them start to lose models. But it is... what have we got over there? Returning Snaga Stalkers, 37 of them. Beautiful scenes. Could they be the heroes? The Rohirrim moment for Angmar is to look back and see 37 brave lads return. Scourge Raiders are still taunting. I mean, I don't know if like morale debuffing is going to be all that effective on Dol Amroth at this point. Most of their units that aren't already broken, like the Pikes, and fighting to the death, they're units which are on the upper end of the spectrum, so routing them is going to be more difficult. Victory, almost a certainty though, and will the arrival of nearly 40 Snaga be the end for Dol Amroth? Is it going to be the difference? Imrahil himself fighting. And Angmar. There are still a couple of witches, 3 witches in total. Out of ammunition of course, but everyone needs to do their bit in melee here to try and secure final victory in the field. And there are still Scourge Raiders. They have now joined the fray in melee, using up all their ammunition, getting stuck in. And it's a close one. It is. It's going to come down to which elite unit is able to really gain the upper hand in this fight. You can see the Black Guard just crushing their way through this side. Haven Guard, they've had more put in their way, but they're still slowly but surely mulching their way through. But I think it is going to be Angmar here. I think Dol Amroth, their manpower is just deserting them here at the wrong time. And a close margin indeed. It will be. 4% the difference, although I would imagine it's going up to 5. I would imagine that will continue to climb, because I do think that Angmar have the beating of Dol Amroth here, and it does go to show that even with some pretty significant advantages, I would say, that Dol Amroth were able to give themselves in this battle, going toe-to-toe with Angmar in an infantry sense is... because that's what it ultimately came down to here. I think, you know, between the Rangers and the Witchers, both sides were able to do as much damage to one another with their supporting cast. Dol Amroth, with the advantages they had, should have been able to do more, I think. They shouldn't have allowed the Witchers to do what they did to that Parathil Champion unit, which that could have been the difference, to be honest. That is like around 100 Parathil Champions perished, and that definitely would have been a difference maker here, because they would have been able to really help cleave through Goblin Band and Scourge Raiders. And it would have started a snowball effect, which probably would have seen Dol Amroth win the fight, to be honest with you. But they weren't paying too much attention, and that has made the difference. And ultimately it came down to just pure martial might in melee. And Dol Amroth, while they have good units for that, Haven Guard, Parathil Champions, good units, they lack the aura that Angmar have in melee. And that has been a massive difference maker in this fight, I think. Dol Amroth could maybe fight back. I mean, Ooh, that's not a good move, this, from Rusty Shackleford. Like, if he retreats his Blackguard, he's asking for trouble. Unless he's trying to get them around to the side, which is the right thing to do. If he throws it away, then I'm going to have no sympathy for him either. Like, what is this? What is going on here? What is this absolute madness that is unfolding before us? Blackguard are kind of still fighting, but most of them have retreated. They are allowing Dol Amroth hope. Hope springs eternal. I think it's too late for Dol Amroth anyway. There simply isn't enough Haven Guard remaining. Look at Imrahil getting circle beaten by Snaga. We always knew that these would be the true heroes of this battle. Now, in the end, one of the Blackguard, one of their overlords came over and claimed the glory after the Snaga did all the hard work, let's be honest. A sword in the back for Imrahil. And there we have it. Tirithea marksmen are most of what is left, and they're obviously not going to be able to withstand the glory that is the Witch Realm Blackguard. And the Witch King's underling here, with his rather interesting looking spiked Great Mace, going to claim victory here in spite of the situation that was before them. So I give Angmar credit for that. I think they executed what they needed to do very well. They came forward in numbers when they saw that Dol Amroth wasn't really doing the business in the town. And I think they actually handled themselves across the bridge very well. Getting those trolls into the skirmishes especially, I think, was a good move. It showed that he was aware of the problem, which definitely good signs for a player that is newer to the game. When you start picking out those targets and you need to shut them down, because he did stop them from firing. And that was big, because it allowed Angmar to come forward with their Blackwatch Legion and make Dol Amroth's front line compromised. And ultimately from there was really no way back for Dol Amroth after that, was there? And in terms of perhaps the spectacle, in terms of the numbers left, 5%, it's been a close battle. You couldn't call it a classic though, I don't think. Let's be honest, there was some fraudulence going on in this battle, I think. There was some fraudulence. Yeah, I mean, I'm never really the biggest fan of battles where players exert their will on it to a certain extent to give themselves positions. Like, if that was the idea, like, was it a siege? Was it supposed to be a siege? I don't think it was, because both sides, to me at the very least, seemed to have similar levels of money put into them. Because Dol Amroth, like, they were de facto defenders today in this, what is technically a siege, ultimately, as it turned out to be. Because they had all of those elite units, Black Swans, Dismounted Knights of Silver Swan, Haven Guard, a lot of high quality stuff, a lot of expensive stuff. They didn't have anything. I think the cheapest unit we saw on display to them was the Doran Ernil Archers and the Pikes. They didn't have any men-at-arms, it had no militia. But I think that the takeaway from this would be that if you find yourself in a situation where you're Dol Amroth facing off against Angmar, you need to leverage your cavalry against them, because you rightly would be quite afraid of something like the Witch Realm Inquisitors, but Dol Amroth have got an equivalent unit in the Haven Knights, and they have much more that they can surround their Haven Knights with to do the business there. And I think cavalry is the way you have to play against Angmar if you're Dol Amroth. I don't think you have much of a choice. Like, in this situation, even with the advantages they were given, Angmar's strength was still too much. And I think, to be fair, I'm glad Angmar won this fight. To be honest with you, I was rooting for them ever since I saw the shape of the engagements at the start. I thought it would be a race to get to the village first, but it wasn't even as if, because of the way the deployment zones lay, Dol Amroth do start off a little further away. I would have been fine with it if Angmar started a little bit further back as well to make it a race for the village. As it was, though, it was clear that Angmar were told they had to allow Dol Amroth to get set, which I'm not the biggest fan of, if I'm being brutally honest. Let's see what did the damage, though. Yeah, Wanderers of Nimrodel, 671. I mean, that does go to show what Dol Amroth's idea was all along. And 671, they did their job, to be honest with you. They got the kills. It was just really the infantry line that ultimately ended up letting things down a little bit. Tirithea marksmen should maybe have done a little bit better as well. One unit of Doran Ernil Archers did well. The other one, that was the one that got peppered up by the Scourge Raiders, I think. Haven Guard did very well on the front line, as you'd expect. I mean, a lot of the units they were killing off, to be honest, were Goblin Band, which they're never going to get anywhere near Haven Guard. Halberdiers did okay. Black Swan Renegades, mixed fortunes for them, to be honest with you. Again, Dismounted Knights to Silver Swan, not brilliant. Even for a supporting unit, I think in an engagement like this, they should be getting closer to 100. Maybe not breaking it, but certainly closer than that. And again, mixed fortunes for the Belfast Marines as well. Yeah. I mean, this battle, it's kind of interesting, take it for what it is, but it is another battle, I think, that sort of galvanizes my desire to move into doing something. And I'll say now, I mean, I don't know how many people I don't know what proportion of people actually watch the post-game screen after the battle's over. I don't know whether they're done with it, but I'll put it rather simply, and that is divide and conquer. I think that what I'm going to be doing, certainly for the next week, in the slots where I would normally be placing Reforged and or Silmarillion, in all three of them, hopefully, we'll do some divide and conquer. Streaming campaigns is something which I did consider, but the problem is, like, my setup isn't really terribly stream friendly. One of those three may very well end up being a stream. We shall see. It kind of depends on what the availability is looking like, because again, there are a few things going on, but yes, that is the plan, effectively. I'm going to give Reforged especially a bit of much needed breathing space, both for the game's sake and for my own sake, because it will allow some high quality replays hopefully to filter on through so that I can build up a bit of a stock once again. And also it will just give me some much needed time away from Reforged at the moment, because for now I think it's fairly obvious to some people, based on the tone of my voice and based on what I'm saying, that the fire has gone out for Reforged for me at the moment. And part of that is just the fact that I've been doing it for quite a while, but also part of it is the fact that, to be honest with you, the calibre of replays that I've been getting has gone down, really, and that has been a bit of a concern, shall we say. But we'll give Divide and Conquer a go, I think, and I think the way to go would be possibly a High Elf campaign in Divide and Conquer. So yeah, we should probably, yeah, I'd say that's probably about 95% likelihood of that happening next on the channel. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.